What's up, all my audience? Today we got a short video on one of the top characters of all the cartoon. I'm talking Azula. First of all, Avatar is definitely top 5 of all cartoons to ever drop. Like watching this as a kid to now, you can watch it as an adult, you watch it as a kid, peak all around, always. But I ain't even gonna lie, I saw like pieces of this drink. I wouldn't say she's necessarily misunderstood because Shawty was tweaking the whole show. Like, but that must be like the princess treatment of the fact that she was the Fire Lord's daughter. You know what I mean? But we're gonna jump into it.
Like most people, I watched Avatar The Last Airbender and thought, Azula, cool character, badass, but ultimately evil. And then I rewatched The Last Airbender while only focusing on the Azula scenes, and I realized something. Azula is not evil. In fact, she is the greatest blind spot of the show, the character who is treated
She not evil. To who? To who?
the most badly by the other characters. I think there is this impression of Azula that she is innately evil. That is to say, she was born bad, has always been bad, and will always remain bad. But to feel this way is to miss the most fundamental message of the last.
First, whatever background music you got playing, A1. I'm gonna say that, A1, dog.
Airbender. If there is one idea you should take away from watching the show, it's that there is no such thing as fundamental evil, and no human being should be thought of in those terms. This is the great epiphany that
ain't nobody born evil. Nobody.
Aang comes to towards the end of the show, which is why he rightly chooses not to kill Fire Lord Ozai. It's also why we all cheer on Zuko's redemption arc.
That man's entire soul, bruh. What are you talking about? Should have murked that man's. But I digress. Boy, I pressed that button so many times it popped in and out of full screen so many times. I done damn near broke it.
And rightly so. But why not Azula?
Hey,
why does she not get the same treatment? I'm not saying she can also have a lengthy, complicated redemption arc like Zuko does, but she gets nothing. And that really upsets me. I don't care about comics that have been added literally decades after the original show. They don't count for anything to me. One of the saddest lines of The Last Airbender comes when Zuko is talking to Uncle Iroh about Azula in Book 2. He asks Iroh to teach him more advanced firebending so that he can face Azula in combat. I know what you're gonna say, begins Zuko. She's my sister and I should be trying to get along with her. That's when Iroh replies with a line that really has no business being uttered by him. No, she's crazy and she needs to go down. Azula, it seems, is not deserving of empathy.
Has Uncle Iroh ever been wrong? Come on now. He wasn't wrong, bruh. Tell me she didn't start tweaking out when her hair started looking all like Medusa and she was shooting straight lightning at everybody. Nah, she was definitely tweaking on the last Agni Kai, bruh. Yeah, she was tweaking, bruh.
Not deserving of the same chance of redemption that Zuko gets, or for that matter, Iroh himself got. For everything bad that Azula does in the show, and I'm not denying that she does a lot of it, none of it compares to Iroh's misdeeds. I spoke about this at
Yeah. You not wrong about that one, bruh. I'm gonna give you that one. Yeah, Iroh. Yeah, he was wilding when he was top dog. When he was about to be Fire Lord, yeah, he was wilding.
Length in my video essay on Uncle Iroh, but one of the most crucial scenes in the show comes when we see Uncle Iroh before his own redemption. When he sends a letter to the family from the warfront and gleefully brags about how he plans on tearing down the walls of Ba Sing Se and burning the city to the ground. For all her faults, Azula never does anything of the scale of this kind of destruction that Iroh brings.
But she ain't even have to do that. Like, his part of his lineage of his family, they literally they're trying to take over the world, bro. So like trying to compare it is crazy. She's just sitting at the top of the throne chilling. Your dad's Fire Lord, you chilling. Iroh was about to be Fire Lord, if I'm not mistaken. Like, and he was tougher. He was stronger than everybody, bro. He was the strongest firebender for out there, next to the other White Lotus dude.
And this is a grown-ass man. Iroh, the celebrated war general, somewhere in his 40s at least at this point. Azula, in the present day of The Last Airbender, is 14. 14, and we're to believe that a 14-year-old child is so evil that she is beyond redemption. I think that very idea is laughable, and in this video essay, I want to talk to you about Azula. And I mean really talk to you about her. Every facet, the good and the bad. I want to talk to you about Azula, the inspirational leader, the manipulator, the fear-inducing tyrant, but also the genuine and loving sister, the loyal friend, and the faithful daughter. And if you aren't yet convinced, then I promise you will be by the end of this video essay that Azula deserved a lot better than she got. I think the biggest misconception out there about Azula is that somehow
she's the most fired, like lightning bender. Like lightning bending, that was the coolest concept next to the metal bending, like, and the lava bending. But you know, we don't get much of that. But until what's Shawty name, bruh? Korra.
Irredeemably different to Zuko. The idea goes that Zuko might do some bad things, but deep down, he's a soft, empathetic little boy, whereas Azula is mean and cruel. I want to put a complication into that narrative, and we should start as far back as we can, the earliest portrayals we see of Azula and Zuko as kids. One of the most enlightening and damning examples of double standards in how they're treated comes when we see Zuko sitting by the pond with his mother. He tells her with a laugh, "Hey mom, want to see how Azula feeds the turtle ducks?" and then smashes a loaf of bread aggressively at one of those turtle ducks. "Zuko, why would you do that?" asks Ursa, clearly disapproving of her son's behavior. A few seconds later, Zuko is met with some instant karma as the duck bites his leg, and after his mother pulls it off, he grumbles, "Stupid turtle duck, why'd she do that?" Seeing this, his mother gently wraps Zuko into her arms and says, "That's what moms are like. If you mess with their babies, they're gonna bite you back." This whole scene is a great encapsulation of how Ursa's gentle parenting potentially saves Zuko from the more toxic elements of growing up in the Fire Nation. Even when he's doing something wrong, she doesn't scold or punish him. Instead, she gently pushes him in the other direction. Take note that Zuko behaves exactly like Azula. In fact, he says he is doing what Azula showed him. And he's gleeful about what he's doing, showing us that he also finds his cruel behavior
What I'm gathering from this is they both retarded.
to be amusing. None of this is to say that Zuko is evil, by the way, but to show that children can be and are misguided at times. That's the whole point of being children. I do believe that every child is fundamentally innocent and loving, but that doesn't mean they won't sometimes do cruel or mean-spirited things. But while Ursa is shocked at Zuko's behavior, she doesn't make him feel like a bad person for doing it. She just quietly points out that that's not nice, and then gives him love and tenderness. Now let's compare this to how Ursa treats Azula in that same episode. In a later flashback, Ursa comes into the room and tells the children to go get ready to see Fire Lord Azulon. To which Azula replies, "Can't you just call him grandfather?" A fair complaint, by the way. And then continues, "He's not exactly the powerful Fire Lord he used to be. Someone will probably end up taking his place soon." Now notice how Ursa responds. Her face gets visibly angry and she grunts out in a stern voice, "Young lady, not another word." Which is to say, she threatens Azula. The implication of "not another word" is that if you say another word, something bad will happen. Then, as Azula runs past, Ursa mutters to herself, "What is wrong with that child?" I don't know, Ursa. Maybe you should be thinking about this, being her mother and all. Maybe, instead of condemning your 8-year-old daughter to being somehow inherently problematic, you should try, I don't know, parenting her?
Yeah.
At the very least, she could do what she did with Zuko, gently guiding her to a better path through love and affection. But no, nothing like that is found. And it only gets worse. Later, Azula comes to Zuko's room to tell him what she overheard in the conversation between Ozai and Azulon. Remember that Ozai told his father that Iroh is no longer fit to be next in line to the throne after having lost his son Lu Ten and becoming a broken man. Azulon, outraged at this suggestion, commands Ozai to sacrifice his only son Zuko so that he too can know the pain that Iroh has suffered. Now in this episode, Zuko convinces himself that this narrative, as recounted by Azula, is untrue by repeating the phrase, "Azula always lies," something that we're just supposed to take as fact, and many viewers still do. But she actually isn't lying. Ozai, on the day of the Black Sun, confirms that this is exactly the conversation he had with his father. This is an idea that we will revisit later, that a lot of our view and knowledge of Azula is clouded by the fact that it comes from Zuko, who is a very biased observer. But for now, let's go back to our scene and see what happens. Because as Zuko says, "Dad would never do that to me." That's when Ursa arrives. "Your father would never do what to you?" asks Ursa, before inquiring what is going on. Azula feigns innocence and says, "I don't know." Like, I think any child would in this situation. That is, unless you believe she should be completely truthful and say, "Oh, well, I was just telling Big Brother here that I overheard our father be commanded to kill him." Now bear in mind that nothing else is said here that Ursa would have overheard. Just, "Dad would never do that to me." But that alone is enough for Ursa to make up her mind. She grabs Azula by the arm and forcefully drags her away, saying, "It's time for a talk." I mean, just compare the treatment of these two children, and I think it paints a really clear picture of a theme we will elaborate on throughout this video essay. That how Azula and Zuko get treated for doing roughly the same kinds of things is completely different. Where's the gentle parenting that Ursa was displaying with Zuko? Where's the empathy, the kindness, heck, even the benefit of the doubt? Ursa just marches into the room, assumes Azula is up to no good, even—
I forgot, but what happened to the mom? Like, Ozai didn't kill her, I don't think. I want to say they locked her away, but I
without
don't
any
remember.
real information on the situation, takes Zuko's side and drags Azula out. Based on how she talks and physically grabs Azula, we can't imagine this talk they're going to have is going to be well-natured. If anything, it's even suggestive of some sort of physical punishment. When Zuko is bad, he gets hugs and kisses. When Azula is assumed to be bad, she gets berated and punished.
Yeah, you know.
Now, I'm not delusional. I do understand that Ursa is a fictional character who doesn't actually have thoughts and feelings or a history. But the reason I want to analyze ATLA in this way is twofold. One, writers base their characters on some idea, whether that's a real person or a conception of the character that they have in their head. That can and very much is influenced by background details they create, like in this scene, even subconsciously. So details like this will affect how writers view their own characters. Things like, well, I imagine Azula was like this as a child and their mother treated them like this, therefore she became like this as a teenager. Secondly, analyzing how the characters treat each other in the series is a good way of challenging our own views on the show. Like I said, we're meant to take a certain narrative from this flashback. We're meant to see Zuko as good and sweet, and Azula as mean and evil. But when you actually look at what's in front of you, the narrative isn't so simple. Whether consciously or subconsciously, the creators haven't shown Azula to be treated very fairly, and challenging ideas like this can help shape how we view people in the real world. Now I can anticipate some arguments against these points already, so I'm going to address them in advance. One point someone might make is that, how do we know Ursa isn't being nice to Azula elsewhere? And the answer to that is, well, we have no reason to make that assumption.
Yeah,
We don't have any other major
showed
scenes
it.
of the
Yeah,
pair's
they
childhood,
should've
nor does
showed it.
anyone mention that this is the kind of thing Ursa would do with Azula. A second point would be, well, maybe she treats Azula differently because Zuko is just a nicer child. To which I'd say two things. Firstly, again, this is an assumption based on how we view the characters in the present day, not based on how we know them to be as kids. There's no scenes we get of them at a younger age than this, nor do we even have a reference to Azula's problematic behavior before this point. So to—
And you can tell she probably had to train harder. She's more surgical in her movements, she's better fire bender, and she's a better lightning bender. So you know she was training hard just to keep up with the fact that they treated her worse than they treated Zuko.
assume that Azula was always bad and Zuko always good would be pure speculation. And more importantly, I'd add the following. This is a
Shawty
child
moved like
of
the little
8.
acrobatic
If someone
friend
wants to
they had.
maintain that at 8, someone can have an irredeemably bad or evil personality, then I can't really argue with them because that's just a fundamental belief I cannot agree with.
She
What is
lost her
Ursa's
mind,
ideology
for
in
real.
that case? That at 8 you should
Like,
say,
Azula
yeah,
lost her
I don't
mind
like
as
one
she
of my
got
kids,
older 'cause
I'm just
nobody
gonna
was
focus on
listening.
the other one. I'm not going to absolve Azula of all her later actions, which we will discuss, but the issues she has are entirely Ursa's fault in my eyes. Ursa, like so many viewers of ATLA, seems to hold Azula as inherently beyond help, which means that Azula is effectively left without any parental guidance whatsoever. Even if Ozai was the involved parent type, which obviously isn't, he actually has responsibilities that keep him away most of the time. So for Zuko and Azula, It's either Ursa's guidance or nothing. And if Ursa has decided that at age 8, there's something fundamentally wrong with this girl, as she puts it, then what hope does Azula have of growth and redemption of her own? But here's the funny thing. Even despite all of this love and special treatment, Zuko doesn't turn out any better than Azula. At least, not initially. Remember that when we meet Zuko at the start of The Last Airbender, he is the bad guy. He's an angry, petulant, entitled brat who shows little to no empathy to anyone around him, even his dear uncle. Zuko does a ton of bad things. He threatens innocents, nearly burns Kyoshi village to the ground, and tries to capture and kill Aang repeatedly. And he does this after having years of Uncle Iroh's direct, softening influence on him. It takes Zuko years of spending time with this wise, empathetic parental figure to learn any lessons. And even then, he betrays the same uncle and chooses to side with the Fire Nation instead.
Zuko and his uncle had the best character growth. Hands down. Like, hands down had the best.
Now, I love Zuko. It is the struggle and the pain that makes him so compelling, that makes him so admirable. I'm not trying to diminish his growth. In fact, I'm trying to make the opposite point. I love Zuko's growth. So where is the chance for Azula to do the same? I'm not saying we need to have 20 episodes dedicated to her journey as well. That's just not practical. But why do we give Zuko so much grace and give Azula none? She has nobody to teach her any better. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, even Uncle Iroh abandons her too. One of the most tragic scenes in the whole show, to me personally, comes in Book 3, Episode 6, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, when Zuko is told by Iroh to learn the history of his grandfather. After revealing that Zuko's maternal grandfather was Avatar Roku, Iroh tells him, "What? Evil and good are always at war inside you, Zuko. You alone can cleanse the sins of our family. Born within you is the power to restore balance to the world." I always found this scene to be really touching and poignant, but in my most recent rewatch, I was screaming at the screen. Because for once, I was thinking about things from Azula's perspective and not Zuko's. So much of the show, in fact, comes from Zuko's perspective, and that's why we like him so much. We get to spend time with him and Iroh, not just in battles and the dramatic events, but in the small moments, in the everyday. We get the chance for Zuko to be humanized, even before he is ever redeemed. So to answer my own question, that's, I think, one of the major reasons why we're so willing to see things from his perspective and give him the benefit of the doubt, but not Azula. But when you do think of things from Azula's perspective, you can't help but question, why the hell does Uncle Iroh not view her in the same terms he views Zuko? The sentiment he expressed about Zuko is equally true of Azula. She too is the granddaughter of Avatar Roku. She too possesses both good and evil at war inside her. It's not only Zuko, as Uncle Iroh puts it, but Azula too, that has the chance to bring harmony to the world. If only someone would give her the chance to do it. And yet, Iroh seems to have spent his life just having written off Azula entirely. That same episode, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, is also when Aang learns a really valuable lesson. After seeing that truth of the history between Roku and Sozin, Team Avatar says to Aang that this just proves that the Fire Nation are evil. But that's when Aang drops one of the most profound and important pieces of wisdom from.
Okay. Fire Lord Roku was an avatar, and then Sozin was what, his brother, and they named the comet after him, is what I'm getting, because I forgot how to use his. I'm thinking they brothers for
the show. He says, Roku was just as much Fire Nation as Sozin was, right? If anything, their story proves that anyone is capable of great good and great evil. Everyone, even the Fire Lord and the Fire Nation, have to be treated like they're worth giving a chance. And yet, sadly, despite espousing this beautiful message, the show itself forgets to do this for Azula. Now, some of you are probably thinking at this point, so what? So Azula gets some bad treatment, but
they doing my man Azula like Kishimoto does every other character in Naruto.
She's still a bad person. She never gives us a reason to think she could have turned out nicer. And that's where I need to change your mind about another thing. Because hear me out, Azula is actually a very nice sister. Before I talk about the struggles that Azula and Zuko go through, I need to talk to you about my struggles. Believe it or not, making hour-long video essays that take months of research.
I ain't gonna hold you, bro. I don't want to hear about your struggles. I want to hear about Azula. So we gonna cut it at that.